It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. So, I finished reading A Tale of Two Cities, and if this is not the best of Charles Dickens, I believe he will become like one of my favorite authors, because this book was insanely good. I don't know how to explain how I loved it, how it was difficult at first. I was really surprised. This opening passage was like mind-blowing, so I know by heart now because it was so brilliant that I wanted to like read it over and over again. And the first chapter was really difficult to me. I would not lie to you. English is not my first language, so I have many difficulties with the language and the style he used here because it's like an old style of writing. To me, it was really challenging. And the first chapter, I had to read it many times. Like I read it like 4 times, the first chapter. And the second chapter, I also read like 3 times. And after that, I was really like used to the style of the author. I also listened to the audiobook version by Audible. I will put the image here. It was so good. This narrator was like amazing, and he helped me a lot to interpret Dickens' style. Here we have little text in this Everyman's Library Edition. A Tale of Two Cities has the best of Dickens and the worst of Dickens. A dark, driven opening, and a celestial but dramatic ending, a terrifying demonic villainess, and even by Dickens' standard, an impossible angelic heroine. Though its version of the French Revolution is brutally simplified, its engagement with the immense moral themes of rebirth and terror, justice and sacrifice gets right to the heart of the matter for every reader in the past 140 years, and for hundreds to come. It is an unforgettable ride. So this is a quite famous book. The first chapter he talks about what was happening in England and in France. At the beginning I was like, what is this book about? Where are the characters? Is there a plot? What is happening? But after the second chapter you start knowing the characters, and there are many characters here, and the story is like woven, and the life of the characters, they are like intertwined in a really interesting way. And the story happens in 2 different cities, in London and in Paris. I will not spoil anything about the book because when I started reading it, I knew nothing about it, nothing. I knew that it was a story regarding Paris and London, and I knew that it was about the French Revolution and things that were happening at that time, and that was the only thing I knew about it. And I would recommend you to start the same way as I did. Maybe this book is something you have read when you were at school. I don't know if you're a native English speaker, I don't know. But I suppose it is so famous. If you don't know anything about it and you want a challenging reading experience, you don't want an easy book. If you want to read more classic books, you don't want a formulaic story, you want something new and something really challenging, I would recommend this book, A Tale of Two Cities. This was what I found here. It took me so long to understand the main things that were happening and why they were happening, and the things that Dickens chose to tell about the characters and the certain moments of their lives. And it builds until a climax, and I was so nervous at the end and I couldn't put the book down. I'm like in love with Dickens. I'm currently reading The Pickwick Papers. It was the first book he published when he was 24 years old, and it is like a collection of little funny adventures and really entertaining. But here I found it was so different. It was really challenging, and it took me some like dedication and discipline. I would know I will understand this book because it seems so interesting. And this opening It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was so great and that I thought it is impossible this book isn't great, because this beginning is so poetic and I love beginnings. When the beginning of the book is great, I usually love it. I'm the kind of reader that needs a strong beginning, and this was one of the best beginnings I've read so far in my life. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, and so far and so on. It was like, oh my god, this is how you start a book, and this is how you start a beautiful story. And it's like historical fiction, and I love historical fiction. Of course, it's simplistic regarding the French Revolution. And the villain here is a woman, and I'm terrified of her. I can tell you, it is a really nice story. And in the end, I was like so nervous about the characters, and I was like, oh my god, what will happen to them? Oh, there's no way. Oh, there's no way they will survive this. They're so complicated. People are crazy. Paris was the worst place to be at the time of the French Revolution. I was scared with the things that Dickens described here. And of course, it was really simplistic as a historical fiction. I don't think this is the point, you know, to be like, to tell the history of the French Revolution. No, but it's to capture the mood, the fear, and in a really unique way of describing the times people were living. I still have to read the introduction we have here. The introduction of this edition is written by Simon Chema, who is a professor of history. Maybe it will give much more depth regarding the meaning of A Tale of Two Cities, but my own impressions, this is such an amazing book with such an amazing characters. The style is unique. It is really challenging at the beginning, at least considering English is not my first language, and I do recommend this book. I want to read everything by Charles Dickens. I'm so impressed with his style, and Charles Dickens was so popular at the time, and people used to be like, oh, Dickens, you know, he was like a really popular writer. In this book we can see why, because the story is like addictive. After he starts building the tension, you can put it down. So I have many Dickens books here because I really plan to know more about his work. So I have here David Copperfield, I have A Christmas Carol, I have Oliver Twist, A Mutual Friend, and Great Expectations. So these are the Charles Dickens books I plan reading in the future. So let me know after reading A Tale of Two Cities and after I finish reading Pickwick Papers, which Dickens book you think I should tackle. So please recommend me a Dickens book, and I'm really anxious to read more books by him because I was really impressed with A Tale of Two Cities. Have you read it? Have you read it? And do you plan reading it? I do recommend this book. So let's talk about it in the comments. See you guys, and until my next video. Bye bye.